A lot of times people ask me this as well, like, what are some of the symptoms that I might have if I've had mercury issues? Well, the symptoms are largely going to be neurologic. So it's going to be brain function. A lot of people complain about brain fog and memory issues, short-term memory problems. Those kinds of things can very much be related to mercury. Obviously, nervous system issues like I had, numbness in my hands, numbness in the legs, neuralgias or neuropathies in the legs or the feet can very much be related to mercury. And the big one is gut function, because gut is largely nervous-based related. We talked about the vagus nerve and everything else. Gut function is huge with mercury exposure. So if you've had longstanding gut issues, you just have tried everything, nothing's getting better, and you've had a mouthful of mercury, it's probably that mercury that's really leading to this.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the podcast. I'm delighted to be joined today with my guest, Dr. Michelle Jorgensen. Dr. Michelle is an author, speaker, educator, biological holistic dentist, and wellness advocate dedicated to helping people live healthier, more vibrant lives. For over a decade, she practiced traditional dentistry until her own health crisis revealed the hidden dangers of mercury exposure. After being diagnosed with mercury poisoning caused by years of removing mercury fillings, Michelle began a personal journey to restore her health. The journey transformed not only her career, but also her life purpose. Through extensive study and experience, she discovered natural, practical ways to heal and thrive, finding solutions in the kitchen, the garden, and everyday living. Today, as the founder of the Living Well with Dr. Michelle, she shares her knowledge to empower individuals and families to create a healthier lifestyle through simple, sustainable changes. I'm looking forward to talking all things holistic dental health in particular in today's show. Michelle, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm excited to talk today.
Me too. Michelle, as a jumping off point, can you explain the difference between a biological holistic dentist and traditional dentistry? Because I think that would give us a really good grounding for everything we're going to go into in today's show.
Yeah, honestly, if it's okay, I'm going to just share my story because I think that really is the best way to describe what it is that I do now. So I was a general dentist, so regular dentist like everybody would know, right? The kind of dentist you've been going to since you were little. And I was practicing, loving it. I was actually doing a lot of cosmetic dentistry because I really like helping people have, beautiful smiles. And I thought I would just do that forever. I was actually working with my father. My father's still practicing. He's in his mid-70s. He's still practicing dentistry. And I thought that that's what I would just do forever. But about a decade in, I started to get really sick and I didn't know what it was. So I did what everybody else does. I went to every doctor I could think of, and I was inside of medicine myself. This was my industry. And so I started seeing everybody and started doing all kinds of things differently. My gut was just a mess. I couldn't eat anything, even sometimes water, without pain. So we just started changing our diet. And I know you talk a lot about diet. So we were doing a lot of things differently. I joke that we threw away all of our food and we started over. We went, all right, it's all bad. Let's start over. And it helped some, but it didn't help a lot. So the next things that were really happening is my memory was just not there. And I've always had a really good memory. I couldn't complete sentences. I couldn't remember my patients' names from room to room. So something was really different. But the big one was numbness. I had just painful, horrible pins and needles all the way down my hands and my arms. I couldn't sleep at night. I couldn't hold a pen. And it got to the point that I couldn't even hold my dental instruments. I just had no dexterity and it was just painful all the time. And so I didn't have any answers. Nobody was able to help me. I was going to so many doctor visits and scans and all of these things. They all handed me a pill, a prescription and said, oh, this will help. But it didn't. That wasn't the problem. So I actually put my practice for sale and I didn't know what I was going to do. I was in my mid-30s. I had 4 young kids. My husband worked for the practice as well. So this was our entire livelihood. We still had debt, student loan debt, and I literally didn't know what we were going to do to even, keep our family fed. And at that really desperate point, I was talking with a lot of different people on, what can I do? Can I teach? Can I coach business? Can I teach maybe nutrition? I learned a lot about food when I threw away all of our food and had to get new food. And finally, another dentist said, your symptoms sound so much like mine. Have you ever looked into mercury poisoning as a potential problem? And that was the first time I'd ever heard that could be a problem for a dentist. I'd never heard that. In fact, the only thing I'd ever been taught is that if I talked about mercury and that it could be dangerous for myself or my patients, that I would actually lose my license. So that was all I'd been taught. And I said, well, I don't have any fillings. I didn't have any silver mercury fillings in my mouth. I said, I don't have any fillings. And he said, it's not the fillings you have. It's the ones you've been drilling out for the last decade with no protection. And I said, well, I've been taught that that's perfectly safe. He said, well, don't you think it's worth being tested? You've tried everything else. And I said, well, yeah, I have nothing to lose at this point. I have everything to lose if I don't find an answer. So I got tested, and that's what it was. Literally mercury levels, mercury toxicities off the charts. So now all of the work I've been doing, I've been drilling out these old black, silver fillings in people's mouths to try to make their smiles better. And, if they've been broken and they're, the teeth are, if there's new cavities under these old fillings, I've been drilling them out. All of that had literally made me sick. So I went to the doctor and they said, okay, we finally figured it out. Now you can't keep putting it in if you're going to take it out. So you've got to figure out how to do your job in a different way if you're going to keep doing it. And I was desperate at this point. So I found an organization that actually had protocol for this. So we use special things. We use a special vacuum that goes at the big vacuum at the base of the chin for the patient. We use specially mercury filtration masks when we're removing it, like myself as the dentist, my dental assistant. We use these special masks. We cover the nose of the patient. We cover the face. We do a lot of things. And so all of a sudden, the patients would say, something's going weird around here. Like, I don't know what's going on. This is not what it usually looks like when I come into the dentist. I would explain, well, this is for me, for my own health reasons. This is what happened to me. And usually they would say, well, but isn't this probably good for me too? Yes, actually, this is good for you because the time when you're getting that filling removed is the time that you're going to get the most mercury exposure. I can tell you now that you are going to get mercury exposure literally every single time you chew, every time you put your teeth together, every time you have a hot or cold food or drink in your mouth. If you have any silver fillings in your mouth, you're going to get mercury. But the biggest mercury exposure is when you get the filling removed. So I said, yes, this is actually a great thing to do for you during this procedure as well. So then they started introducing me to doctors. They'd say, well, I'm kind of going on this health kick thing, I'm kind of getting into this different kind of health stuff. And so my doctor, I think they'd be interested. I started talking to doctors, and these weren't just like traditional MDs. These are naturopaths, these are chiropractors, these are wellness centers. These are people who are more interested in functional medicine and the way the body really works. And they started asking me questions like, what do you really know about fluoride? I mean, really, because as a dentist, we're just indoctrinated that this is absolutely essential to have healthy teeth. And so I'd say, well, no, it's good for us. And I'd say, no, it's good for your teeth, but is it good for us? Is it good for your body? I didn't know the answer. So I'd have to start looking. And then they'd say things like, well, what about root canals? Like, I've heard that there's some issues with root canals. What do you really know? And I'd done hundreds of them up to that point myself. And I'm a question asker. So if I didn't know the answer, I just had to keep asking questions. And so I found some things. So I started calling myself a holistic dentist because we were looking at the whole, the whole body and saying, okay, how does this mouth thing relate to the whole rest of us? But that started really kind of pushing people away. They would say, oh, holistic, that just means like crazy. And they started thinking things like, oh, I'd have like incense burning and we're doing, peace signs and I'm wearing tie-dye. And like I got the whole thing going on. And that's actually the complete opposite of what we are because I have to defend everything we do. So I have to understand all the latest science, all the latest research. We have to have it applied. We have to have backing for everything we do. So that's not who I am. So I said, you know what? I'm actually not going to call myself that because there's a lot of baggage that comes along with that. I'm going to call myself what I like to say is health-based. I'm a health-based dentist. I just look and say, okay, how does what's in your mouth affect your overall health and vice versa? How does your overall health mirror what's going on in your mouth? And how can we use the two things together and realize that the mouth is actually connected to the rest of us and say, how can we help ourselves be well starting right here in the mouth? And research shows 60 to 80% of all chronic disease is either caused by the mouth or related to the mouth in one way. So this job is super important. And this podcast that you're doing is so important because people need to understand what is the connection between their health and what's happening here. And that's what I do.
I'm so grateful for that introduction and for this conversation because I'm the person that this isn't my area. I'm the person that's interested in the overall health, the nutrition, the movement, the mindset, the meditation, the breath work, all that physical stuff. And I will openly admit this on the podcast because I said it to you right before we went on air. I'm one of these people that I won't say anti-traditional dentist, but I have trust issues with fillings, mercury, gaps in my knowledge, using Dr. Google when I'm not informed or educated enough in that space to know what's good information and what's bad. I can filter nutrition, training, things along those lines, I can look and go, well, that science is relevant, that evidence is relevant, that research is a meta-analysis, I'm good. I can't do that with teeth. I don't have that. So I'm going to ask a lot of questions that I know people are going to be thinking directly to you, Michelle. So I'm very, very grateful for this. The first one, and thank you for sharing your story, because I think that's such a brilliant hook and gives us so many jumping off points. But the first one is mercury and the fillings. For someone that's listening in Ireland, in the UK, and I think it's the same in North America for the most part. Utah, I know you're in Nevada now, but just North America in general, mercury tends to be the default that happens in terms of the fillings that people get, especially those in their 30s and their 40s that got them several years ago, and that's just what's there now. If somebody is listening and they've got mercury fillings and they want them removed, what is the process for that, and what is the replacement or the alternative when they get those removed? What else would you put in as a replacement instead?
Yep, this is a really important question. So the first thing is we need to define which fillings have mercury in them. And those are going to be any metallic filling you see. So if you look in your mouth and you see a filling that looks grayish, blackish, that filling is 50% mercury. Literally. It has been since the 1800s when it was started in Europe. The dentists or doctors and barbers were doing dentistry at the time, and they figured out that they can mix liquid mercury with silver shavings and make a paste, shove it in a tooth, and it would kind of harden, and then it would work as a filling. So that has been the standard really in dentistry for so many years. So any filling that's black or gray colored that you call a silver filling, whatever, that's 50% mercury. It is releasing that mercury day in and day out. However, like I said, the most important time is when you get that filling removed. So there's an organization called the IAOMT. They're located in the US, but they have a lot of international members. So IAOMT.org. And if you go on their website as well as mine, livingwellwithdrmichelle.com, we have a dentist directory. And I'm getting more and more international dentists on mine. In fact, I just had a phenomenal dentist from just outside the London area come to a course at my practice just 2 weeks ago. She was amazing. And so these are dentists that we are now working with to be able to help you find them. Because these are the dentists that are following all the right precautions. So what are they going to do? They're going to use all the things I described. They're going to use what's called a dental dam in your mouth when it's being removed. They're going to use a big vacuum by your chin. They're going to cover your nose, and they're going to cover your skin because mercury is absorbed through your skin. Do not, listen to this really importantly, do not get them removed unless you do it safely. Because that procedure, like I said, is the time when the most mercury is released. So do it the right way if you're going to do it. The other thing we do is we really recommend that you've worked with some sort of a practitioner who can help it's the urinary system that needs to be moving. So like your bowel, everything needs to be moving before you do this so that they can get rid of it once it is and once you get more in your system. So make sure you're using a dentist that can do this in the safe way. And there are protocol. And so you just keep calling around and looking around until you can find one. But like I said, those 2 websites are going to help you find somebody that does that. Then they are going to know best what material to use. But really, it's pretty simple. Composite is a combination between, it's a resin and a glass mixture, and it's the white fillings. Like if anybody looks in your mouth and you have white fillings, you're fine. There's no mercury in that. That's the filling that's what it's going to be replaced with if it's a small filling. If it's a larger filling, you may actually need a porcelain covering. So it's a porcelain piece that goes over just because the filling was so large, there wasn't a lot of good tooth left to support a filling anymore. So either composite or porcelain are going to be your replacement materials of choice. Now, what do you do if you've got a broken tooth, if you have something going on and there's no dentist near you and this is an emergency? Like, what are you going to do? Well, you're going to be really conscious of this, first of all, and you're going to make sure that they are using a dental dam. A dental dam is something that nearly every single dentist, actually pretty much every dentist, can use and does use at least during some procedures. So you're just going to say, please use a dental dam when you're doing this. You're going to make sure that you use something called chlorella and charcoal. You can just get these literally on Amazon or whatever. Chlorella and charcoal are 2 binders. They're called binders. So the biggest issue is you are going to have mercury shavings and, debris in your mouth after this procedure. So what we have you do is you rinse with that before the procedure. So you already have chlorella and charcoal in there ready to grab stuff. and then you rinse with it after your procedure and spit it out, of course. So then it's going to grab anything that's in there and you're going to get rid of it. Then work with someone else on how to detox mercury from your system. And it doesn't leave easily. It doesn't leave nicely. So you do have to work with someone who can do something called chelating, where it's going to pull it from the brain, the kidneys, everywhere, and pull it out so then you can excrete it. And what are potential symptoms? A lot of times people ask me this as well. Like, what are some of the symptoms that I might have if I've had mercury issues? Well, the symptoms are largely going to be neurologic. So it's going to be brain function. A lot of people complain about brain fog and memory issues, short-term memory problems. Those kinds of things can very much be related to mercury. Obviously, nervous system issues like I had, numbness in my hands, numbness in the legs, neuralgias or neuropathies in the legs or the feet can very much be related to mercury. And the big one is gut function, because gut is largely nervous-based related. We talked about the vagus nerve and everything else. Gut function is huge with mercury exposure. So if you've had longstanding gut issues, you just have tried everything, nothing's getting better, and you've had a mouthful of mercury, it's probably that mercury that's really leading to this. So gut functions are big ones as well. So hopefully that'll kind of give you a guide. Okay, find the dentist to go to, use precautions. If you can't, what do you ask for? What can you do at home? And what things is this going to help with?
I'll use myself as a guinea pig because it's one of these rare podcasts where I'm going to be taking action directly after because of where I'm at in terms of season, etc. So I think I'm a good guinea pig for this. Partly I have a long-standing gut issues, like you've mentioned, where I have fixed and addressed everything else possible.
Yep.
And the last thing I meant to was I have fillings in my mouth that are silver. There's mercury clearly in those. As a guinea pig, because there's going to be people similar to me who are finding this podcast exactly when they need it, the week it comes out, the month it comes out, maybe a year later, 2 years later, when they're going back and listening, because I'll be sending people back to this evergreen as is needed. Is the process for me of the world now to go into the directory on the website, find somebody that is in, if they're not in Ireland, the UK is an easy place to travel to, somewhere to go to, and book in with that dentist? Is that the protocol for somebody like me and somebody in a similar position who wants to move with this in a positive way?
Yes, absolutely. And I'll just let you know, the dentist that I just mentored this last weekend, her name is Dr. Beta Fox. She's in the London area, but I also have another dentist in Ireland, and I'm just blanking on her last name right now, so I will let you know that. Anyway, Dr. Ann, I'm remembering her first name, but not her last name. But there are dentists, and we are getting more and more of them involved in Ireland and the UK. And we actually are working on getting our product there. We're working on manufacturing local to the area, all of these things, because as I talked with Dr. Fox this last weekend, she said this is just so needed in our area. And there are just two things. There are few providers, there aren't as many dentists doing it. So that's something I'm working really hard on. But there's also a lack of information that this is needed. And that's what you're working hard on. So thank you so much, because this is something that just hasn't been talked about much in these areas. And it needs to be talked about. So thank you for doing that.
Oh, my pleasure. And thanks for coming on. And it's funny, we have a lot of people that listen in the UK, but when I find out who Dr. Ann is, something tells me she's going to be very busy for the next year or so off the back of this podcast, if past experience is anything to go by. Talk to us about the product. What are you creating? What are you trying to get over this side? And again, because a lot of stuff I want to touch on in terms of obviously just basic teeth health, keeping it healthy, fluoride misconceptions, etc., like we've already touched on. But talk to us about the product so people can get an idea and what to keep an eye out for in terms of like physical things.
Yeah, so we need to talk about fluoride, because that's really the reason for the product and the reason the product even began. Fluoride was something that I grew up with. My dad was a dentist, and so we were just fed fluoride. We took fluoride pills. We had fluoride in our water. We used fluoride swish in school. They had it in school, these disgusting little rinses of pink and green. Did you have fluoride swish as well?
We had the same, yeah.
Oh
we
my
had
gosh,
them too.
I can still taste that in my mouth. It tastes so terrible. So the idea behind fluoride was good. They found it was actually in the 1940s, they found that areas that had higher levels of fluoride in the water naturally, so this is well water, right? Well water had higher levels of fluoride naturally, they had less tooth decay. And so they said, you know what? This is actually a great finding. Let's put fluoride in water. Let's put fluoride in toothpaste. Let's put fluoride in things, and it's going to stop tooth decay. So I want to ask you one question right off the bat. Did it work? Have there been any cavities since 1940?
was way more.
Okay, so we've established that it didn't actually fulfill its initial goal, right? It didn't eradicate tooth decay. Okay, so we know that. Yes, everybody would agree. So the problem is that anything we put in our bodies, and I'm sure you talk about this, anything we put in our body affects every single cell. So anything we put in our body, like, so we put fluoride in our body and we say we want it to strengthen a tooth. Great, it does that. But guess what? Fluoride doesn't just stop there. Every single thing we put in is going to act on every single cell, whether we want it to or not. And we call these side effects. Not realizing that this is actually what everything does. Literally every bite of food we put in our body is going to act on every single cell in our body, whether we want it to or not. This is just the way our bodies work. When fluoride is integrated into a tooth, it makes a tooth stronger. It makes a tooth stronger. It makes it less prone to acid attack. That's really what a cavity is all about, is when either you get sugar on your tooth. The sugar doesn't cause the cavity. I know everybody's mom told them it did. The sugar doesn't cause the cavity. What causes the cavity is bacteria in the mouth eat the sugar, and then they excrete acid as a byproduct of them eating the sugar. That acid is what causes the cavity, because acid dissolves minerals. I mean, there's all sorts of experiments you can do, where you can drop a coin in a bottle of Coke, and it's like eating away all the minerals, and acid eats away minerals. So the acid on the tooth, either from bacteria eating sugar or acid that you put there. So if you're drinking a lot of energy drinks or sodas or even lemon water all day long, any of these things are acidic, and they are also going to dissolve minerals. Well, if the minerals dissolve, the bacteria crawl into the hole that the minerals came out of. Now they eat more sugar, they create more acid, they crawl deeper into the hole. So this is really a cavity is a bacterial infection. It's just bacteria crawling into your tooth. So the idea is, let's make the tooth stronger so the bacteria can't crawl in, so the bacteria can't dissolve the minerals. It worked for teeth, but it didn't stop there. So fluoride is also very similar to iodine. And back to your, early school chemistry class, iodine, fluoride, chlorine, bromine, these are all cousins. They're all very similar molecules. So if you have a lot of fluoride in your system, it actually is a bully to iodine, and it pushes iodine out. Well, what acts with iodine? Thyroid. The thyroid requires iodine to make thyroid hormone active. Gut. Your gut requires iodine to secrete things. Basically, every cell that secretes something requires iodine. When you have fluoride in your system, fluoride bullies the iodine, pushes it out, binds instead. We now can't use the thyroid hormone. So our tests say you're just fine. You don't have low thyroid function. You have plenty of hormone, but the hormone's been bound by fluoride. So now huge amounts of people have fatigue, energy issues, low thyroid function. They don't know why. It's the fluoride. And interestingly enough, in the 1970s, they used to use fluoride to treat hypothyroidism. Sorry, to treat hyperthyroidism. So if your thyroid was overacting, they gave you fluoride intentionally. They knew it decreased it. So that's one biggie. The second one is bones. Teeth and bones are made of the same mineral structure called hydroxyapatite. So if it changes your tooth, which it does, we know it does, it also is going to change your bone. It changes the density, and it makes it more brittle. Well, a brittle bone is not a good bone, right? A brittle bone is more prone to fracture. The third thing it does is it changes the brain function. There was a study just in January 2025, earlier this year, that showed a direct correlation between increased fluoride, decreased IQ in children, directly, particularly with boys. So you get fluoride in the system, you have stronger teeth, you have more brittle bones, you have lower thyroid function, and you have lower IQ. So it didn't achieve its goal of eradicating tooth decay. Was it worth it for all of these other side effects?
It's hard no. Hard no, yeah.
And here's the great thing. Fluoride, a cavity is not a deficiency of fluoride. It's not. Fluoride wasn't there to begin with. A cavity is a deficiency of minerals. So here's the amazing thing. All we have to do is put those minerals back that acid dissolved. Or there's another side of this too. The body sometimes has a greater demand of minerals than what you're feeding it. So either you're not eating food that has high mineral content, or your gut isn't absorbing the minerals. Your gut has to actually have activity. It has enough stomach acid down here to ionize the minerals to get them in. So your body says, listen, I need more minerals, guys. You're not feeding me. Guess what it does? It goes and steals them from your teeth and your bones to take care of the rest of you. So this is another source of minerals being lost. So we see tooth decay in people who have gut issues. And they're like, well, what's the correlation here? Because your gut doesn't absorb minerals properly. Now your body's going to steal them from your teeth and your bones. You end up with cavities and osteoporosis. So what do? The answer is really simple. We just add minerals back. That's all we need. We don't need fluoride. It didn't do the job that we wanted it to do, and it did all these other things we didn't want. So how about we just put back what was lost, which is hydroxyapatite. So this is the beauty of today's world, is now we have solutions that we didn't have before. So these products that I created are hydroxyapatite products. They are products that literally just deliver the minerals back to your body that were lost through acid attack, to your body needing more. So I say minerals on the outside, which is hydroxyapatite products. So it's tooth powder, toothpaste, mouthwash, mints, all of them that have the right minerals that your teeth need, and then minerals on the inside, which is what I call tooth bone formula. It's our tooth bone formula, has minerals that your body needs, plus vitamin D3 and K2, which are absolutely essential for absorbing minerals properly, because the vitamins grab the minerals and put them into the cell. So you can't just take a whole bunch of minerals and not take the vitamins D3 and K2 along with it. What you're going to end up with is a lot of tartar on your teeth, or kidney stones, or gallstones, those things, because the minerals don't get where they're supposed to go. You have to take the minerals plus the vitamins D3 and K2, to get them into the cells. So this answer is very simple. How do you keep from getting cavities? You use minerals on the outside, you put minerals on the inside, your body has enough, it doesn't have to steal them, and it doesn't dissolve them, and you literally don't get cavities anymore. We even are able to heal cavities. If the cavities are on the outside surface of the tooth, start using these products, the cavities just go away, because the cavity is just simply a lack of minerals. If we put them back, there's no more cavity anymore.
I love that. I've actually seen several of your reels and content going through this. That one viral that was when you realize cavities are curable. I think it was you potentially spinning around in a chair, if I'm not mistaken. And it was when you support your teeth with the minerals they need. And that's a beautiful synopsis of it there. Again, a few other angles that I want to cover, but just on the products, any timeline, and I know this is quite of a tricky one to answer, but just for those that are listening, Ireland, UK, EU based, anyone in Europe, are we looking 2025, 2026? What's the timeline? Just because people on this podcast from experience take action with things. A lot of type A individuals, but a lot of holistic type A individuals, people that are looking for an edge, looking for performance, looking to have a more balanced lifestyle. And I know there's going to be people who will pause this to search straight away off the back of it. So just so there's an expectation alignment even when it comes out. What timeline? I know it's a very tricky one to answer, so we can edit this as we go on, or I can edit the description, but what's it looking like at the time of recording?
So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to go into Amazon, whatever it is that you typically order from. Health is another one that's there in the UK that you can actually order through as well. You're going to look for a hydroxyapatite product. So even if mine isn't there yet, mine should be there early 2026 is our hope. But even if mine isn't there yet, look for a product with hydroxyapatite. That's the key. And there are a few. It's interesting because we need to keep talking, because all the manufacturers that I'm talking to, they say nobody's interested in this. Nobody is buying these products in the UK and Ireland. And so nobody's manufacturing them here. And I'm saying, are you kidding me? Then just let me talk about it. I promise there is interest. I promise.
This comes up so often in the health, wellness and fitness space. It's actually, again, hence the excitement before we were chatting, because this comes up, but there is a massive gap in terms of people knowing where to go, and also in terms of filtering. And I would consider myself quite educated on biological functions in the body in general, based with nutrition and fitness, but teeth is a whole other thing that you're like, I actually don't know if this information is good, if this information is wrong. When you're on Google, you're on ChatGPT, you don't know. So this podcast, I think, cuts straight through the noise. Your content cuts straight through the noise, and this 100% is a demand. I would imagine 80% of the people listening, even coming into this episode based on the titles of, fluoride being in the title and mercury and teeth, etc., people are going to be coming in with looking for a solution-based approach. And again, I from personal experience, of course, I'm going to be biased because I'm very heavily in this space, but there's a massive need for this.
Well, thank you. And I agree. So now we need to work together to get the word I'm talking to the manufacturers. They see that there is potential here. They say, okay, an American brand that already is established, let's bring it in. And I'm saying, no, there's a need and there's an interest. So thank you for really being the one that's pushing, one of the ones that's pushing this forward.
Oh no, my pleasure. And again, I know there's a lot of people listening similar to me because when I came across your content, because I know we had to do a reschedule a couple of times, and I came across your content and I was like, oh my God, literally found me right when I was in this search, like this weird. I'm not sure if you're personal friends. I know Josh Deck follows your page as well, and he does a lot of work in terms of the IBD, inflammatory bowel disease, but he talks about mercury fillings as one of those issues. And from the conversation I had with him, it's been in my space, but I've been looking everywhere to see, well, where are the holistic dentists? Where do I go? Who do I trust? And then your content came into my space, and I'm like, okay, amazing. And now following on from that, and I think there's going to be a lot of people very similar following the Instagram page off the back of this, taking action with the products, looking into Dr. Anne, looking into Dr. Fox in the UK, etc. So very, very grateful. I want to ask a few other questions in and around this. With keeping our teeth healthy, most people know the bread and butter basics, the minimizing of sugar, like you mentioned there, the reasons why in terms of cavities, removing fluoride, adding in the, I've forgotten the name,
Hydroxyapatite.
hydroxyapatite. I've came across that several times. I was like, that won't come up on the podcast. I don't need to write that down. But I was like, here we go. 100% did come up on the podcast. I should have known that. Is there any other best practices that people should consider? You mentioned the mints there, obviously brushing the teeth, using the correct paste, using the correct type of products, etc. Is there any other best practices in general for healthy teeth that don't get spoken enough about?
So oil pulling is one that people ask me about a lot, and it's really easy to do at home. So I like to talk about it. Oil pulling is an old Ayurvedic technique they used in India for thousands of years. And the concept is that if you put oil in your mouth, and often it's coconut oil, you can use sesame oil, but it has a lot more flavor. So I like coconut oil myself. If you put about a tablespoon of oil in your mouth and you swish it around, typically it's about 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes you need to swish, which seems like an eternity. But I say, go do something else. Go unload the dishwasher. Like, go take your dog on a walk while you're swishing, whatever. But what it's doing is the oil is attracting bacteria, because every bacteria is surrounded by fats. That's just the way they're made. They're all surrounded by the outside of them is a fat. Our cells are made the same way. And so when you swish, you're literally attracting fats to fats, and it's pulling all of the bacteria from all the nooks and crannies in the mouth. So it's a really good way to clean places that aren't very accessible. If you have some teeth that are crowded or crooked, or you have some old fillings and things, this is a way to get something into all those nooks and crannies and places that are difficult. So you swish for about 10 minutes. You're going to spit it out in a Kleenex, like in a tissue paper, and throw it away. Do not spit it into your sink. You will clog your drain. And I used to spit it just like outside my back porch onto grass. I literally killed an entire patch of grass. So I'm like, okay, this is potentially, this is potent, whatever's coming out of here. So spit it into a tissue and throw it away. But if you do that for about a week, you know what, each day, you don't have to do it every day after that. I like to tell people about every third day, do some oil pulling again. It's fabulous for gum health. Why? Because gum disease is a bacterial infection as well. So if you can balance the bacteria in the gums, you are going to help with gum disease. The second one that people don't think about is tongue scraping. So this is also an old Ayurvedic technique, which I'm thinking they had some things figured out, a long time ago back there. So tongue scraping. When you look at your tongue, you might think, well, I brush my tongue, it's just fine. So I'm going to challenge you. Get a tongue scraper, and you can get any kind. There's a bunch of different varieties. You're going to be able to find them on Amazon or wherever. We have a version of them, but they're all pretty much the same. So you're going to brush your tongue. Everybody tells me I brush my tongue, I don't need to scrape my tongue. Then I want you to use the tongue scraper and see what comes off of there. You're going to be disgusted. It's so gross. There's so much crud still on your tongue even after you brush your teeth. That is largely yeasts. So if somebody is struggling with yeast problems, especially in the gut, it's most likely originating here in the mouth. So the order that I do things, that I recommend people do things, is you're going to brush, floss, or clean between. So I tell people you don't actually have to floss. You can use what's called a go-between. It's going to clean in between the teeth. You can use a water flosser. My favorite is called a shower flosser, where it goes between your shower on the wall and like your shower head and the wall. And so you just divert a little bit of water from your shower and you clean your teeth while you're in the shower. So it's like already messy. It's already wet. It's perfect time to do it. So just clean in between somehow. So brush, clean in between somehow. Then you're going to tongue scrape And then you're going to do some sort of a rinse. Now, I have a rinse that has hydroxyapatite, but until you can get that, a real easy one is just some dilute salt water. Rinse I'll put like 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt in water and just rinse it around. What is that doing? It's just kind of freshening everything up. It's a little bit of an antimicrobial. It's killing bacteria a little bit, and it's going to balance the acidity in the mouth. So take care of the yeasts, get everything off, and you're going to be surprised to see how much better your gut is even just because of that.
Funny timing. I was talking to you right before we went on air. I'd need to Panja on the podcast, and I was telling Nita I was apologizing how much it took me to wrap my tongue around her name. Really, really struggling. But we were talking about Ayurvedic medicine. That's her area. She's one of the leading practitioners in the US on Ayurvedic medicine, and that was two of her tips as well. So again, the trend is falling beautifully through. I want to ask, which is a very left field question, and I actually did quite a bit of research and couldn't find it. Now, this might be on your channel and I just didn't find it, but I was curious because something that's become very, very popular in Ireland and the UK, we call it, derogatory term, we call it turkey teeth. It's people that are going to Turkey to have complete implants and new teeth put into their mouth. This is becoming very, very, very popular over here. I know the US have been a bit ahead of this, North America, for a while. I remember that when I moved to the US when I was 19, I remember one of the girls I went out on a date with, just a complete random story, very short one. She had the most perfect teeth of all time. And I remember just staring at her teeth. and I remember asking about half an hour into a date going, I'm so sorry, but your teeth are amazing. And she was like, oh yeah, they're not mine. Like, and I was like, what do you mean they're not mine? She goes, well, they're implants. I got my teeth done. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. I was like, you have the most perfect mouthful of teeth I've ever seen in terms of like cosmetically looking. So I had never even heard of them until I was 19. Completely ignorance is bliss, growing up in the countryside in Ireland before I got to travel the world. But it's become very popular here. What are your thoughts on, I'm not sure is teeth implants the right word, because one of the conversations that came up on several occasions is people who have, okay, if I ruin my teeth, if I rot my teeth, if I ruin issues, not talking about health, just cosmetically, I'm just going to go to Turkey and I'm going to get them fixed and I got a whole new mouth. What are your thoughts on that process? And are there, if you have an idea on this, I'm not sure, are there health risks associated with it? Again, I'm not the person to ask. My filtering, even when I Google this, comes back, Dr. Google says it's terrible, others says it's fine. I don't know where to start on it. Is there any health risks associated with completely changing your mouth in terms of shaving down your teeth, putting in new teeth? And again, I know it's a bit of a side tangent, but just I wanted to ask you while I have you on the podcast.
Yeah, no, it's good. There's two different things that I think you're talking about. Number one is something called a veneer or a crown. So what that is what you just said, shaving down the tooth, making space for porcelain. So in that situation, the tooth itself is staying in the mouth, but they're putting a covering over it that makes it look better. So that's either a veneer or a crown. It's all porcelain. So the challenge with that procedure is that you are losing all the enamel on the tooth to do it. And the enamel is the insulating layer of the tooth. So when you've now lost the insulating layer of the tooth, it's pushing the tooth further towards death. You know, we didn't talk about root canals, but root canals are a concern. Root canals do not ever stay completely well. They constantly lead to low dose chronic infection in the mouth. So anything that's going to compromise your tooth and lead it to potential death is not the way I want to go. All right. So veneers, crowns, we actually do a veneer. So a veneer is just a surface treatment of a tooth that makes it look better. We actually have veneers that you don't remove the tooth to put on the tooth. If there's no decay, if the tooth's still okay underneath, we put it on the tooth just to make it look better. So these are called no prep veneers. So you can look at that, no preparation. So they don't remove any tooth to do it. So if you just want a better looking smile, you just want a whiter smile, straighter teeth, whatever it might be, do either braces and whitening or do a no preparation veneer, something where they're just going to put a new front on the tooth. It's going to look gorgeous. So that's one situation. The other situation you talked a little bit about was dental implants. So what are those? That's when they're actually removing the tooth entirely and replacing the tooth root with a screw. Basically, it's called a dental implant. So there's screws that they put into the jawbone. This sounds really graphic now the way I'm describing it, but they put it into the jawbone where the teeth used to be, and then they connect new teeth on the top of it. And I don't know what turkey teeth are. I don't know
Oh,
what.
literally turkey teeth as a veneer porcelain you've described, but turkey teeth is literally, I won't even say it's a derogatory term. It's people going to Turkey, the
To
country,
get
to
it.
do
Okay.
it because
So
it's
it's
so
probably
much
just that
cheaper.
veneer version. So again, the veneer version is be careful because it might be pushing your tooth toward an early and untimely death, which then leads to infections and other issues. If you're getting all the teeth removed and dental implants placed and new teeth attached to those, which is also done, it's done actually quite a bit in the US as well. That is very concerning to me for two reasons. Number one, usually the thing that got you there in the first place, that got you to decayed teeth, to infected teeth, to gum disease, to the need to have the teeth removed, that hasn't been corrected. And if it's not been corrected, guess what? You're going to lose all of that work. So you're going to go and put, in US dollars, this is $50,000 to $100,000 in your mouth. UK dollar, the euro equates similarly, but so much money. And if the underlying conditions that led to that tooth decay, whether it's gut function, whether, whatever it might be, or just even simple oral care, that's not going away. And so what I see people is they are so excited, they have this gorgeous new smile, and it completely rots out underneath, and they end up losing all of that. And once you've lost all of that, your choices are down to dentures, things that just don't stay in, they flop all around when you eat. So that's one concern. The second concern I have is the titanium that's used with the dental implants. So dental implants traditionally have been titanium. What that does is it creates a metal interference in the body. So there's metal in what we call meridians. Basically, these are the energy lines that the body runs on. Like that's the way our heart beats and our brain fires. We have these energy circuits. The metal is like a short circuit in those lines. And so based on where those metal implants are placed, it changes the function of other organs and systems in the body. So thankfully, there are ceramic dental implants. And interestingly enough, Europe is where all of this was started, not in the US. So particularly Switzerland has been kind of the leader in this area for ceramic dental implants, which don't create a short circuit. So if you are to the point where your teeth are not savable, you have to do something drastic. First of all, fix what's going on. Start there. Fix your health. Fix your nutrition. Fix those things. Now, getting the teeth out may be an important part of that. And maybe that you can't, fix your gut entirely when you have infected teeth. I get it. So this is a joint thing that we have to do together with healthcare and dental care together. So you remove the teeth, but get a ceramic dental implant if possible, because it won't short circuit the rest of the body. And stay on top of taking care of them, because, people will say, oh, I'm just going to get all my teeth taken out and new ones put in.
That's literally the conversation that I've heard at least 100 times from 100 different people.
Yeah. And you're going to everything's going to rot out just the exact same way it did the first time around. You have to fix the root cause problem for why you're in this situation to begin with. It's not just a panacea. It's not going to just fix everything and every problem goes away at that point. That's not how this works, because those dental implants are held by the same bone and gums that you didn't take care of to care for your own, to hold your own teeth in. So why, and this is, I actually, for 3 years, this is my entire job. This is all I did, was took out everybody's teeth, put in dental implants, and put these teeth on top. And I don't do that anymore. And the reason is because there were too many just extreme disappointments. People coming back and they're losing implants and they're falling out and they're saying, well, how can I save this? I'm like, you're not fixed. Your situation isn't fixed. How do we expect this to be successful in the same mess that you got yourself into to begin with? You have to fix that first.
It's so funny because I've had identical conversations with other experts in different areas and myself with GLP-1s, the Ozempics of the world, for using a drug to potentially mask a problem. And there's definitely, for class 3 obese individuals, it's a life-changing protocol that can potentially improve their quality of life and move into more positive change. But for a lot of individuals, you end up just eating less of really poor quality food. I've had Johan Hari on the podcast multiple times, New York Times bestselling author. He wrote a book, The Magic Pill, on his experience on Ozempic as a journalist. He's based in the UK. He lives in LA, does a lot of work with the LA press. And he said, I still eat KFC multiple times a day. I just eat less of it. So there's no underlying issue being fixed. And I've had identical conversations with people with low testosterone, which I focus a lot on with my male older athletes or older individuals, where they're not fixing any underlying issues, potentially going on a testosterone replacement therapy, and there's none of these underlying issues fixed in terms of stress management, sleep, nutritional protocol, alcohol consumption, and then they're adding this on top with all potential side effects. And it's so funny how so many of us, unfortunately, default to the same thing. We have this, I'll just do that. I'll just use the GLP-1. I'll just use the TRT. I'll just get my whole mouth done when it's time. I'll just get the hair transplant. I'll just do this. I'll just do that. When in reality, there's a lot we can do day to day that would be a lot more sustainable, a lot more healthy, and a lot more beneficial. So again, just this 2 cents I wanted to add. I've got one final question that I want to ask, just because this would be very relevant for a subsection. So I left it till the end because it's about the hidden dangers of removing wisdom teeth, because I know you talk about this as well. But before we do that, Michelle, I'm going to link out the Instagram page, Facebook, YouTube, all the channels with Living Well with Dr. Michelle, and the website as well, of course, livingwellwithdrmichelle.com for people to check out. Is there anywhere in particular that is the best place to go? I assume it's the website based on everything we've talked about, and still staying up to date with future products coming over to Ireland, the UK, etc. Is it the website? And then we'll get on to the final question.
Website and YouTube. I mean, that's where all the information is. I literally release a YouTube video every single week on all of this content. It's free. Just get on there if you want more information on any of the things we've discussed today. I've talked about it, guaranteed. It's on there somewhere.
Amazing. And I'll do that. All the links will be in the description below for people to click straight on through off the back of this podcast. Last thing I want to ask on moving wisdom teeth, and we don't have to spend too long on this, but this is, I think, an important, especially for those, I want to say with children, and I don't want to like minimize this in terms of this is obviously applicable to a lot of individuals, but a lot of parents that listen to this podcast, wisdom teeth will be something that will potentially come up with teenagers, early adult children, etc. And potentially down the line, just in my experience, it was in that phase of life and college age when I got my wisdom teeth pulled and other people were getting it pulled. So again, my bias and experience is on that. But what are some of the things or potential hidden dangers that people need to know when it comes to removing wisdom teeth? Because this isn't as straightforward as just yank it out, pull it out, and it's good to go. I learned this from your content. Can you explore that a little bit for us?
Yeah, first of all, why do we need them out to begin with? That's a question people often ask, and a lot of it has to do with growth and development. Our mouths just aren't the same size they used to be. If you look at skulls 300 years ago, everybody had all 32 teeth and they were all straight. And now we all have crooked teeth and they don't fit. And this is nutrition. The first bone affected by malnutrition is actually your top jaw. And when we're talking about malnutrition, we're not talking about, living in a, refugee camp or something like that, although some of that we're listening may have been that situation. But malnutrition also comes from food that has lower nutritional quality. So the food that we're eating, KFC, whatever it might be, simply doesn't have the nutrients that our bodies need to be able to grow bones. So the top jaw is the first bone affected by malnutrition. So if we don't have enough minerals, the jaw doesn't grow. A small top jaw equals a small bottom jaw because it has to fit on the inside. Now there's not enough room for all the teeth. So this is really the genesis of this. And this was studied in the 1940s by, his name is Dr. Weston Price. And he went all over the world and he researched and found that those that had the best nutrition, the best vitamins and mineral content in their food had the widest smiles, the most room in their mouth for the teeth.
Did he write a book? Was it The Nutritional Degradation of...
Huge book.
Yes, I read that a few years ago.
Yeah, fascinating book about how we really are, falling apart nutritionally and our bodies are showing them. It's because the nutrition. So we have to focus in on how do we get that nutrition. So if I am a grandma, I've got 4 kids, 3, almost a third grandchild now, and the key focus for me is minerals. We've got to get minerals in. So if the mouth grows adequately, there's enough room for wisdom teeth. But what if it doesn't? What if there's not enough room? What if you're already 19 or, whatever it is? Well, in that situation, the problem is if the tooth has no room to come in. And teeth come in kind of like pulling into a parking spot. They come in sideways and then they straighten up into the spot. If there's no room to straighten up into the spot, then they're going to create issues for the tooth in front. Either a pocket that leads to gum disease or tooth decay on that tooth, and then you're going to lose both of those teeth. So we do recommend removing them at that point if they're going to create an issue in the future. But it's very important to remove them with someone who's going to do a couple of extra steps. You want them to remove the ligament around the tooth. That's really important. And then preferably, if you can find it, someone who will do stem cells in the area. It's called PRF. This is becoming more and more prevalent. And honestly, Europe and UK and these areas are kind of some of the leaders in PRF. So you probably are going to be able to find someone that'll do this for you. What that does is it's stem cells from your own body, growth factors from your own body. It gives the bone something to grow to. So these areas heal correctly. So if you're getting them out now, that's what you're looking for. But if you've already had them out in the past, you have issues with hormonal problems, hormonal balances, especially sex hormones, so estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. You have issues with fatigue levels, with adrenals, thyroid issues, and issues with stomach. You need to do something called a cone beam CT scan, which is a special dental scan. Again, the dentist that I'm directing you to will have these. They'll send you out for them, and then they can read them. What they will look for is, did those areas actually properly heal? And if not, it can lead to those symptoms I just listed. It'll lead to chronic inflammation in these areas, and these areas are connected to the endocrine system. So that's all your energy system, that's your sex hormones, that's all the hormone generation, all of that, and the stomach. So if you have long-term chronic issues you cannot figure out, go check out that cone beam CT scan, find out if you have areas that didn't heal where the wisdom teeth were removed. If so, we go back and clean it out right. We clean it out, remove that dead ligament that wasn't removed the first time, put the stem cells in there so that it will finally heal. And we have had miraculous symptom improvement when we clean these areas out.
Mic drop. Michelle, this is one of these podcasts I don't think I've learned as much in a 50-minute conversation in a very, very, very long time. So thank you so much from the self-education standpoint. I know this is going to reach so many people. For those of you listening, I'm going to put this call to action in the introduction as well. You're going to think of a family member, you're going to think of a friend, somebody that will need this episode, either because of the fluoride, because of the wisdom tooth, because of the root canals, because of the turkey teeth that we talked about. Please copy it, send it over to them on WhatsApp, send it over to them on text message, tell them to check it out. And Michelle, keep doing the incredible work that you're doing. As I mentioned, I'm a fan on this side because this is literally the season of life I'm in terms of following on. Like, as soon as we come off the air, I'm going to be getting the details for Dr. Anne as well, and I will link those up for people so they can follow on off the back as well. Keep doing all the incredible work. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for the wonderful conversation, and we'll catch up again soon.
Thank you.
I did tell you, 50 minutes of jam-packed information with holistic dentist Dr. Michelle Jorgensen on the health risks of mercury fillings and why you should stop using fluoride and what it really means to have healthy teeth. Literally off the back of this conversation, when we went off air, I was talking to her about our products coming in 2026, about the directory and potentially helping in any way that I can. This is literally me filling my own pain point because I've been about a year searching for biological holistic dentists to try and work on some of those underlying gut issues that I mentioned. And it's been like banging my head against a wall. So now I feel like I'm able to navigate this with more clarity. I hope today's podcast was the same for you. As I mentioned, please share it with any family members or friends. Head over to the Instagram. Showing my age here. Head over to the Facebook. Head over to Instagram, tag it up on your Instagram story and put a tag for myself and Michelle on there as well so people can see it and get this information out there, especially if you're in Ireland or the UK where it can feel like pulling teeth, to pardon the pun, with finding information like this. So that's everything from today's podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Catch you all next week.